What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into a live edition of Falcons Today. Matthew Peterson here with you guys, breaking down some Falcons cut candidates, some draft buzz. We got some fun topics on today's show. I'm excited for it, but I appreciate everyone for taking time out of their, what is it, Thursday already? Is it Thursday? It's Thursday. Thursday afternoon to come hang out with us. I know we're having a bit of an earlier live show today. The reason being is I've got to catch a flight later today. It's partially my fault. I did, in my defense, book the flight to do live show at the normal time, and then I got a nice email from Spirit Airlines, which that is my fault for picking Spirit, saying, hey, hope it's no big deal. We moved your flight up 2 hours. So that was a very nice email to wake up to. So like, all right, well, I guess we're going to roll with it. And then I woke up with no service. So I had no service up until like 45 minutes ago, and I found out the other day, like, oh, my flight got moved up by 2 hours, so let's just roll with the punches. But shout out your city. Let me know in the chat where you are tuning in from. Always great to see where everyone's watching from. Shaylin Spinda, ATL Ho. I've got King something in York, Pennsylvania. Ty Man the Buckeye is in the chat. We've got Phoenix City, Alabama in the house. I got Pensacola, Florida. You going to go catch a Blue Wahoos game, Mr. Williams? Alpharetta is in the house. Let me know what your favorite wing flavor is at Taco Mac, Mr. Hussein. Locust Grove, Georgia. College Park, Georgia. The Buckeye State from Ty Man the Buckeye, as always. Let me know where you're tuning in from, because it's always great to see where everyone is watching from. I'm a sucker for maps. Like outside of talking sports all day long, I love history and I love geography. And it's always really cool to see fan bases that are spread out nationwide and international at times as well. I've got Irving, Texas in the house. I've got Noonan, Georgia here. I've got McDonough, Georgia, but from College Park. One of my college roommates was from, not roommates, just fraternity brothers were from McDonough. Jason. Yeah, maybe that is Jason's burner. Adrian, Michigan. Atlanta, Georgia. Cam Knows Best is in Denver. Shane is tuning in from Minneapolis, Minnesota. We got Columbus, Georgia here. Let's see. Spirit is for poors. That is true. I am flying. I basically am paying to be the pilot. You want to know what's really weird about Spirit? I feel like I'm doing like a little like half-assed stand-up hour right now. You know that their bag policy is really expensive, right? That's not a secret. Right, that's stupid. But the tickets are cheap, so that kind of offsets. It is cheaper to check a bag than do a carry-on. Yeah, that was a curveball I was not expecting. So I'm actually checking my bag. I'm checking my backpack. I'm going on a bachelor party. I didn't pack a whole lot of stuff. So I'm putting my backpack in a suitcase because I don't want my backpack being tossed around with the check bags.
Right.
So I figure like some extra protection. But that's cheaper than carry-on with Spirit.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Cam Knows Best. So ready for the season. We are at not the absolute dog days of the offseason, right? We still got free agency and the draft. But although I will say late February is a little bit like we got to like wait. We're stalling almost like a plane or a car before we get to the combine after the Super Bowl. Like that 2-week stretch is a little dry, but then we get to the combine, and that gives us loads of draft content. And then free agency gets us through March, and then the draft is in the end of April. All right. I do want to toss another question your way. While we let the audience build up, don't worry. We're going to get to all of our topics in just a moment. But while everyone clicks on the video and gets their seat and everything, gets a snack, shout out your college. It's always fun to see what SEC and what other fan bases are being represented right now. So let me know what your college is, whether you are an alum of that school, whether it's just the family school, the local college, whatever it might be. Shout out your college. Let me know. Ty Man the Buckeye, easy. Ohio State University. Joseph is going with the Bulldogs. Brody's going with Alabama. I've got UGA coming in from Mr. Bland. Let's see. Cody, Georgia Tech. It's been a tough couple of years for Georgia Tech. Yeah. I bet against Georgia Tech basketball the other day. That was a good decision. Sorry, buddy. Go Canes. I got UGA. Go Dogs. Shaylin's going with Tennessee. Barry, Brazil, UGA. It looks like Georgia is dominating, and that was expected. Bull Warrior going with the Vols or Syracuse. Taylor with the Oregon State Beavers. How about that? Dropout. Curtis B. Power to you, man. Go Bucks. Michigan sucks. And then my swanker, Boston College, all the way up in Chestnut Hill. So let's get back to football topics because I think I'm going to lose the whole audience if I don't get on track here soon. Pick a quarterback for me. I think we all know what tier of quarterbacks this is. There's tier A, which is Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels. There's a very realistic chance Atlanta will never have any of those players available at pick number 8 or have an opportunity to trade up with the team because they could go 1, 2, and 3 in that order, and none of the teams in the top 3 might want to trade out. So if that happens, and that's not a long stretch by any means, and Atlanta wants to draft a quarterback, who from this next tier of quarterbacks do you like the most? I'll be honest with you guys. The NFL draft in April, being in April, does such a disservice to some players. If the draft was in February, there'd be no discussion in my eyes. It would be Michael Penix. He was just in the Heisman voting, unlike J.J. McCarthy, ahead of Bo Nix. He beat Bo Nix head-to-head twice. For me, it's a no-brainer. But because the draft is in April, we got to, stir the pot, bring up these storylines, and make the draft interesting, and toss some, complete blindsided reports out there. If the medicals check out and Michael Penix can play football with a clean bill of health, I'm taking Michael Penix over Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy. But if the medicals come back of, hey, we're not really sure this guy is going to be able to play in the National Football League for more than 3 seasons if he takes another hit to his knee. All right, then I'm not going to invest a really good draft pick on a guy that might be out of the league in a few years because of injuries. And that sucks, but that's what happens when you suffer 2 torn ACLs and 2 season-ending injuries at Indiana. That's just a lot of injuries. That's just more than any average injury you see in college football. So I'm going to go with Michael Penix Jr. Let me know what you guys think here. Luke is going with J.J. McCarthy. DR King's going Spencer Rattler. I can't stand Spencer Rattler. I hated Spencer Rattler the moment he went on QB1 on Netflix. Just the way he carried himself. I know he's matured and grown a little bit since then, but I don't know. I still think that little punk's there. Robert's going with Michael Penix Jr. Brody Brown's going with Michael Penix Jr. Brody Brown says J.J. McCarthy is going to be a bust. What are we thinking? What are we thinking, ladies and gentlemen? Now, while you guys are getting your picks in for your favorite second-tier quarterback, I do want to remind you all, we have a mailbag, by the way, coming up at the end of the show. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, whether it's related to free agency, the draft, trades, anything under the sun related to the Falcons, hashtag Falcons in the chat or super chat. Be the first super chatter for today's show. You guarantee your question or your comment gets on screen. Here is our super chat menu for today. $2 super chat, you get a shout out so everyone can see whatever comment or take you have to share with the group. $5 super chat, we're going to have you be a sponsor of a future Falcons Today episode. You know those highway signs, this highway is sponsored by the Boy Scout Troop 156. Well, $5 super chat, and you could be the sponsor of a future Falcons Today episode. That's my Boy Scout Troop 156, baby. $10 super chat, Michael Vick autographed jersey. Now, it's not just simply $10 and you get the jersey. We are going to do a raffle for it, so it's a $10 entry. We're going to do that said giveaway at the end of the month. So we have one more show on a Thursday, the last day of the month, for Thursday, February 29th. And we will do this raffle, this drawing, the last day of the month. So next Thursday. So $10 super chat gets you entered, and we've been doing this month long. So in fact, we can actually share the people that have been entered into the Michael Vick jersey giveaway. I've got the following: Dave Joseph, Melon Walter, Taylor Elwell, Ed Garrett, Jason B., and Jeffrey Bullard. So those 6 people have all sent in a $10 super chat or super thanks, and they have been entered to win that Michael Vick autographed jersey giveaway, which will be next Thursday. So make sure you tune in to see whether or not you win. All right. And then $20 super chat. If you've got an idea for a show you want to talk about, Petey, I want to know what you have to say about this topic, or I want to discuss this possibility. $20, and you can help drive the ship a little bit. And as always, thank you to everyone that sends in super chats. That should be repeated and said way more often than I do. I get lost in some of the fun and chaos, but once I sit down at my desk later on, I'm telling you guys, and I kind of had that sobering realization of it is so awesome and cool that people watching the channel go, you know what? I want to support this channel with my hard-earned dollars. So thank you to everyone that super chats and supports the channel. If you're unable to super chat, no harm, no foul. like the video, comment, share, all that cliche stuff. You know what it is. And that is a great boost to the channel as well. And right on cue, Archangel, longtime viewer, longtime commenter here on the channel with a $10 super chat. Mr. Archangel, what can I do for you? Rise up, Petey. Pete, let's go get Jaden Drake or just bring Fields home. I'm telling you guys, Justin Fields is the Falcon. Been saying it since October. I want the credit when it happens. I think Drake May would be an awesome selection. I think Jaden Daniels would be a great selection. Not very confident that Atlanta's going to get in striking distance of those two guys, but they could go into free agency. Just hear me out for a second. Trade for Justin Fields. Trade a second-round pick for him. All right. You have 2 third-rounders right now. One could escalate to a second if the Jags extend Calvin Ridley before March 13th. If not, 2/3, and you still have the 8th overall pick. Get Justin Fields. And then you could go Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors at number 8. Pair him with Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and let's score some points, baby. And then figure out defense and free agency. You know what I mean? It's not going to be a one off-season repair every single hole, but you're going to plug a lot of holes this off-season. We're definitely going to reduce the amount of water going into the boat. Archangel, salute to you, man. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Cannot thank you enough. Barrett Gay, what's going on, Mr. Barrett? Barrett, appreciate your $5 super chat. We will have you be a sponsor of a future episode of Falcons Today. Remind me when we finish filming, it'll be Monday because I'm off this weekend. I got a bachelor party. So Barrett, Mr. Barrett Gay, tune in Monday. If I forget Monday, it'll be Tuesday, but I won't forget Monday. And you'll see your name all over that episode. So Barrett, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Rise up, dude. Oh, they're back. Oh, no. We got Atlanta Dog 88. Atlanta Dog 88. What's going on? That's a pretty cool, profile picture. Look at Atlanta Dogs 88, icon. Throw it on screen. There it is. We got Georgia, Braves, Hawks, and Falcons. What do you think about taking a chance on Jordan Travis in a later round? I'm all for it. I look at the draft maybe a little bit differently than how your average fan does. I look at the draft like a lottery that you've got a decent chance of winning. The current Powerball, I know I have no chance of actually winning. But that's not as drastic as the NFL draft, okay? I think the quarterback position is a spot that you should pick someone every single year. You never know what injuries you're going to take on. You never know who's going to be the next Tom Brady or Brock Purdy. And when you look at Falcons' 6th and 7th round draft picks the last 10 years or so, how many were even on the team 3 years into their NFL career? It may not work. It might be a waste of a pick. You might be set at quarterback. It may be pointless. But I do believe that the quarterback position is just so impactful. It's worth just buying a lottery ticket every single year. Because the day you do win, whoa. I mean, that's what happens to teams like the 49ers, teams like the Chiefs. All of a sudden, overnight, you can become a dynasty. One's a 7th round pick, one's a 1st round pick. But did either team need a quarterback when they made that selection? No. But they're lottery tickets. And when you hit on them, it's so worth it, dude. So I know that wasn't very specific to Jordan Travis, but I'm always on board with taking a quarterback late because why not? Yeah, you might miss out on some defensive tackle. Boo-hoo. It's not as important as a quarterback. Always take a quarterback every single year. Life of a Ham, Atlanta, appreciate you, my man. Justin Fields, Hollywood Brown, edge rusher, veteran corner in free agency, and Terrion Arnold at number 8. Fill out wide receiver and defense with the rest of the draft. Best way to go about it. All right, this guy, I think we might have Terry Fontenot's burner. I don't know if you guys are on your lunch break at Flowery Branch or what's going on, but let's break it down. Trade for Justin Fields. All right, move on from a 2nd round pick, get Justin Fields. I'm in. Sign Marquise Hollywood Brown. I've never been the biggest Marquise Hollywood Brown fan. Fun fact about yours truly, and I still can't say it. One of my first 2 months at Chat Sports, so this was 2.5 years ago at this point, I made a Hollywood Brown Magic Johnson joke on a video, and that got cut out. My boss is not happy about that joke. So I won't repeat it, but I've never been the biggest Marquise Brown because of fan because of all the drops he has. So I'm not crazy about that, but I can get behind it. That's not going to be a major turnoff here. Edge rusher vet, even if it's not a big splash, sexy name like Danielle Hunter or Brian Burns, if you get a Josh Uche or a Darius Smith, like I can definitely play ball with that. It's not a long-term thing, but it is a start for at least getting better in 2024. Corner and free agency, sure. And Terrion Arnold at number 8. I don't think you have to go corner and free agency and Terrion Arnold at number 8, but I do love going Terrion Arnold. I'm just a big Terrion Arnold fan. I know corner might not be the biggest need for this team, but I feel like putting him with A.J. Terrell for the next 4 or 5 years, if they overlap together, will be an awesome no-fly zone in Atlanta. And then fill out the rest. Arnold 8 and fill out wide receiver and defense with the rest of the draft. There are some great wide receivers that Atlanta could get in round 2 or round 3, depending on what day 3 picks or day 2 picks they ultimately have. So that was a long-winded response, but life of a ham, I like the idea. I like the approach. Procter Gamble, P&G. Yes to Fields, yes to Daniels, and maybe, but if they are going J.J. McCarthy, if they are gone, J.J. McCarthy is a QB sleeper, and I'm a dog fan. All right, Proctor, appreciate you for super chatting. Yes to Fields. All right, I'm in. Yes to Jaden Daniels, and then maybe something else, but I don't know what that maybe is supposed to follow. But I like this plan. I think a lot of us are on the same page when it comes to the Falcons' quarterback path. I think a good chunk of us, 85%, are in on Justin Fields. If for whatever reason that doesn't happen, find a way to get Jaden Daniels, awesome. If those two things fall through, oh boy, it'll be bad. It's not going to be pretty. Now, here's the thing with J.J. McCarthy. I'm not the biggest J.J. stan, but like I just said a moment ago, if you do have your second-round pick because you didn't trade it for Justin Fields, I'd be all about using a second-rounder on J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix. Might work, might not work. A second-round pick should ultimately not make or break your draft, or not just your overall franchise trajectory. You should not be that reliant on the 43rd overall pick to determine whether or not you are a successful or a failure in 2024. And like I said earlier, and I won't repeat the same spiel, I'm always about throwing a dart at the quarterback board to see if you get a bullseye. All right, Procter Gamble, thank you so much for your super chat. All these $10 super chats, by the way, are being added to our Michael Vick autographed jersey giveaway, which will be next week, next Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern. So make sure to tune in. Coming up on today's show, top 5 cut candidates for the Falcons to free up even more cap space going into NFL free agency next month. And then we're going to do a different type of segment on the show. Players to avoid with pick number 8. We're always talking about guys to draft. I've got 5 players I do not want to see the Atlanta Falcons use the 8th overall pick on. So all that coming up on today's show. Mr. Cullen, are we ready to jump into the show? Okay. Let's do this thing. Let's talk Dirty Birds. Welcome into Falcons Today. Matthew Peterson here, running through 5 cut candidates for the Falcons to free up $20 million in additional cap space for free agency next month. Now, let's just set the scene for a moment here. The Falcons' current cap space with a projected salary cap of $242 million is $25 million right now. So $25 million can definitely get you 2, maybe even 3 starting caliber players in free agency. But if Atlanta wants to free up an extra $20 million, well, let's run through 5 cut candidates to make that happen. Starting with quarterback Taylor Heinicke. This one seems like a bit of an obvious one, right? I would be very, very, very surprised if Taylor Heinicke is still on this roster for 2024. He comes off a season when he appeared in 5 games for the Falcons. He provided no spark offensively, came off the bench, started a week or 2. Didn't really matter what the situation was. They never got that boost from Heinicke, despite it being a homecoming for him coming back to his hometown Falcons. Now, if Atlanta moves on from Taylor Heinicke with a pre-June 1 trade or release, because I could see Atlanta finding a trade destination for him for like a Justin Fields swap potentially to help the Bears get a new backup QB for maybe Caleb Williams. Well, he's got an $8.5 million cap hit, $2 million in dead cap, right? That's money that's devoted to players not on your roster. That's not a very big number. $6.5 million in cap savings. So does Atlanta really want to have an $8.5 million cap hit for a guy that's backup quarterback on this team? Highly unlikely, right? Sure, Atlanta does not have a very good, they had the worst quarterback room in the NFL. Let's just call it what it is. But I don't see a way Taylor Heinicke returns next year with that cap hit. And I don't think the Falcons are interested in making a new contract for him. It's a new head coach that didn't sign Taylor Heinicke. I ultimately think they are just going to move on from him altogether. Now, if they move on from Taylor Heinicke, their cap space goes up to $31.5 million. So all of a sudden, you got $31.5 million to spend. We're talking top 10-ish in cap space for 2024. Let's move on to the next cut candidate. Now, this one is not as a slam dunk as the first one, but it is tight end Jonnu Smith. Did not think he would be one of the most explosive players on the Falcons roster in 2023. That was not on my bingo card, but he definitely packed a punch. Like, he had some of their biggest plays offensively. 50 grabs, 582 yards, 3 touchdowns. He outshined Kyle Pitts for stretches this past season. Now, Jonnu Smith is an interesting cut candidate because he produced last year, right? For a backup tight end to get 582 yards and 3 touchdowns out of, that is by far exceeding expectations. And then when you factor in Atlanta's tight end room, which there's a little bit of uncertainty with Kyle Pitts in terms of whether or not he truly can be a clear-cut, dominant, elite tight end like you thought he would be at the 4th overall pick. But after Jonnu Smith, like Michael Pruitt is a free agent. Fitzpatrick is a guy that has had very little experience in the NFL so far. So there's a big drop-off after Kyle Pitts. So if Raheem Morris walks into that locker room and thinks, well, I don't really know what I have in Kyle Pitts. And I know that if I move on from Jonnu Smith, I've got no one after him. So do I want to rebuild my entire tight end room all to save $6.5 million? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe. I don't think this one's 50-50. I think it's like 60-40. The 60% being that the Falcons do move on from him. But at the same time, he was very productive for them last year. If they don't feel like they're going to find anyone better for what they're paying Jonnu Smith and they don't want to use draft capital for tight end, they may hold on to him. But if they feel like, you know what, new OC, new head coach, we've got our guys targeted, we can do a lot better at that tight end spot for a lot less, then yeah, they'd be dumb not to take the $6.5 million and run with it. So if they move on from Jonnu Smith and Taylor Heinicke, they are up to $38 million in cap savings. So now we've got some serious dough to spend. Like, if Atlanta's thinking spending big for a guy named Kirk Cousins, they're going to have to move on from some of these players to get additional cap space. Now, would you cut Jonnu Smith? I have seen comments going back and forth on this. He was good last year. Like, there's just no denying that. But I don't know if a new regime wants to hold on to a $9 million cap hit for a backup tight end. There might be some disagreements in the war room over that one. Moving on to our third cut candidate, it is outside linebacker Lorenzo Carter. Okay, let's talk about the former Georgia Bulldog. Day 2 pick to the New York Giants, came back to Atlanta, and Lorenzo Carter had a really good first year with the Falcons, but this past season was a bit of a drop-off, and that's putting it lightly. 35 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 fumbles recoveries. Those aren't bad numbers by any stretch, but Lorenzo Carter was paid to be a starting outside linebacker. And when you look at Atlanta's depth chart, he ain't a starter. Arnold Ebiketie took over that starting role. Bud Dupree, despite having a couple more years on him, took over a starting role over Lorenzo Carter, who I think Atlanta was more optimistic about Carter and Ebiketie being starters going into the year, and Bud Dupree just coming in for third downs. But ultimately, they couldn't trust Lorenzo Carter to play first, second, and third down, so they went with Bud Dupree for much of the year, and Carter came in for obvious passing situations. Now, let's say Atlanta wants to move on from Lorenzo Carter. Well, he's got a $4.7 million cap hit, only a $1 million dead cap hit. and that means $3.7 million in cap savings. So nearly $4 million in additional money to be added to the free agency piggy bank for a guy who played 81% of snaps in 2022 compared to, here's the snap count in 2023, he played 38%. So big drop off from 81% in his first year with Atlanta to 38% this past season, almost cut in half. I could see the Falcons going, yeah, we're going to take that $4 million in savings and run with it. So they continue to make all these cuts. They are now up to $41.7 million in cap savings. Now, we're going to run through some more cut candidates in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you guys about an awesome deal still going on over at Fanatics, which is this Falcons t-shirt and hat combination. If you want to up your Falcons wardrobe a little bit, make sure you get on this deal right now because these sales in Fanatics, they kind of come and go. So if you want to get a new piece of Falcons merchandise in your closet, go to chatsports.com/ATL combo and use that link to get this Falcons t-shirt and hat on sale right now. Now, I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Cut candidate number 4, we're going to go with cornerback Mike Hughes. So the former first-round pick, believe it or not, by the Minnesota Vikings not too many years ago, has bounced around a little bit since then. His most recent stop was, of course, Atlanta, where he signed a 2-year contract. Now, I thought we would see more special teams out of Mike Hughes, and I was surprised to see that he did not play as much special teams this past season as I thought he would, and I thought he did. Now, when it comes to a move on from Mike Hughes, it's very cost-friendly to Atlanta. Only a $750,000 dead cap hit, so hardly any of your cap space going to a guy that's not on the roster, and $3-ish million in cap savings. So I think, again, when we look at a new defensive coordinator coming in that's been specialties in defensive backs, he may want to pick a free agent or two that he feels is a better fit for his system. Now, at the same time, when you look at Atlanta's cornerback room, Jeff Okudah is a free agent. I don't think they'll be bringing him back. He was benched at the end of the year. So if they don't want to make life more difficult for themselves, since Trey Flowers is also a free agent, and they don't think Clark Phillips is ready to start yet, they may very well hold on to Mike Hughes because $3 million in cap savings is nice, but it's not, life-changing money in terms of the NFL cap. They may hold on to him. That way they have a good backup plan. If a rookie or Clark Phillips is slated to start at CB2 and ultimately they discover early into training camp in the season, they're not ready for that kind of role. But as we continue on, if they do move on from Mr. Hughes, now they're up to nearly $45 million in cap savings. Or cap space, I should say. And that brings us to our 5th and final cut candidate. It is Desmond Ridder. Now, this one's an interesting one. Desmond Ridder is not on this list to save money like the other 4 guys. I think Desmond Ridder will actually stay with the Falcons as a backup, but I don't think it's blasphemy to suggest Atlanta might move on from Desmond Ridder and bring in a whole new quarterback room since last year's was such an abomination, right? At the same time, I've gone back and forth. I'm not the biggest Desmond Ridder hater out there. I actually somewhat warmed up to him, as strange as that sounds, throughout the year because I felt like Desmond Ridder made some really good, difficult throws. Just couldn't stop turning it over. That's really what was the death of Desmond Ridder. The Panthers game, the interception, the 3 fumbles in the red zone against the Buccaneers. If he just doesn't turn it over, I think Desmond Ridder's got a way different, public image of his stock right now. But turnovers are a very important part of the game. They are not something just to gloss over. And I think Atlanta, and I hope Atlanta, like the rest of the NFL learned last year, that you should not bank on your starting quarterback playing all 17 games. Half of the league lost their starter at some point. So it's good, not good. You must have a good backup plan at backup quarterback, or you can see your season go down the drain. So I could see Atlanta holding on to Desmond Ridder just as a backup in case the starter, whoever that might be, gets hurt next season. Because they know Ridder can come in and he can play some decent football as long as he's not turning the ball over. Now, there's really no cap savings to be had if you move on from Desmond Ridder, less than $1 million because he's so early into his rookie contract as a 3rd-round pick. But if you do move on to Desmond Ridder, move on from him, along with the other 4 players we looked at, You got $45.6 million in cap space. That is up $20 million change from where you started with $25 million. So there are definitely some savings to be had if Atlanta wants to spend big in free agency. Those are 5 guys they can move on from to make some additional room to sign a big-name guy like a Daniil Hunter, a Kirk Cousins, a T. Higgins if he somehow hits the open market, a Michael Pittman, whoever it may be, and then some more along with it. Now, who do you want the Falcons to cut? Let me know down below in the comments section. We just ran through 5 names. Maybe it's someone I left off of my list, but give me your honest opinion down below. That will do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning into another edition of Falcons Today. We're going to sign off and see you all later. Did I see some Soupies flying in? Soupies were flying in. Let's go. All right. One from across the pond. Let's do it. Complete the states. CLNS, Rise Up UK. I have to assume, is this the person who commented on the video yesterday that I replied to? I got a comment that I said was like a top 5 comment of my entire YouTube life that's like, you know, I love what you do, yada, yada, something like that. I gave their opinion on whatever we were talking about, and they're like, by the way, my wife and I walk around our entire house just saying, make sure to use promo code CLNS. Here's the funny thing. CLNS has nothing to do with Falcons Today or Chat Sport. It's the promo code that Prize Picks gave us. So it's not even like a cool one like ATL or something. But hey, CLNS, Rise Up UK, thank you so much for tuning in all the way from the UK. It looks like this time last year, I was in London on a week-long vacation with my girlfriend. Had a great time across the pond. Thank you so much. Established TV. Fields or Daniels, Cousins should be nowhere near Atlanta. ATL was way more exciting when we had a dual-threat quarterback. We have to bring it back. All right, I love the Cousins should be nowhere near Atlanta. That's like the SNL skit. Chris Bosh should not be allowed to have, Mario Chalmers should not be allowed to have arms to shoot a basketball in the 4th quarter. Chris Bosh should be locked in a small closet where there are no basketballs or round objects of any kinds. But I don't really get the last part. Like, dual threat. Matt Ryan was not a dual threat quarterback, and he is the best Falcons quarterback in franchise history. Like, I know we're talking about this guy right here, Michael Vick, and I get that. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, Atlanta was very good with Matt Ryan, and he was not a dual threat quarterback. So I don't know if that is the ultimate blueprint for quarterback success for the Falcons. But having said that, I still agree with your first point, which is the most important part. Justin Fields or Jayden Daniels, I'm in, dude. Taylor Elwell, what's going on, Taylor? Good to see you, buddy. Y'all are killing me with these $10 super chats. We get a QB1 that's not via the draft, trade back, and get that wide receiver from LSU. I hope this double my odds for the jersey. Taylor, it does. You now have 2 entries for the jersey, so good thinking on your part. First off, to answer your question, though, I don't think Taylor's going to like this next segment. This next segment is players I don't want the Falcons to draft. Now, I said at number 8, and you said to trade back. So maybe we can handshake agreement. We're on the same team here. But Taylor, if we're talking about the same wide receiver from LSU, just wait for the next segment. And you may ask to have your money back. Appreciate you, dude. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much. Reggie Lopez. What's going on, Mr. Lopez? In my opinion, the ideal scenario, trade for Fields, draft an edge rusher. Hopefully that guy, Dallas Turner from Alabama, sign Calvin Ridley back to help with the receiver core, and boom, NFC South is ours for the taking. Okay. I don't think it's a bad scenario. I mean, I feel like often, and maybe this is just me that thinks this way, whenever people send in, ideas they have for a team, the host, whether it's YouTube, radio, TV, always feels obligated to just disagree with it slightly so that they don't just piggyback your idea. I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm not as high up on Dallas Turner as other people are, but I can recognize that Atlanta needs to make an attempt to get a long-term answer at the edge rusher position. As for Calvin Ridley, I have no idea emotionally how that would go over. Do the Falcons have any interest in bringing him back after, him just, I don't say screwing the team over, but putting himself ahead of the team with the gambling and leaving the team in a bad spot without him? That may be one where Arthur Blank goes, no, we're not signing that guy. End of discussion. Find another wide receiver. And owners do that. Don't believe me? Go look at the Carolina Panthers. So that may be one, and maybe that's not the case. Maybe Arthur Blank is water under the bridge. But I kind of wonder if the Falcons go like, dude, that's the receiver that didn't play for us for a season or a half a season, whatever it was, because he took some time away and then he got suspended. Like, not interested. Reggie, I do appreciate your super chat, though. I hope you're doing well. Atlanta Dog 88, what's going on? How much can we save if we cut Caleb McGarry? Not a lot. I'll give you the exact number. Remember, they just signed him to a 4-year contract. So, like any contract, I'll give you guys a quick free NFL life hack. And whenever you see a multi-year contract, 3, 4, 5-year contract, reduce 1 year from it, and then take that year, and then look at the guaranteed money, and that's the contract. So Caleb McGarry signed a 3-year, $34.5 million contract with $15 million guaranteed. I look at it as he signed a 2-year, $15 million contract. So his dead money is $9.5 million. In fact, there's only $3 million in cap savings. So financially, it makes very little sense. I know that Caleb is not the most popular player amongst the fan base, and he has hot and cold stretches, but they're stuck with him for 2024. Not stuck, but like they're not moving on from him for 2024. They can move on from him, no problem, 2025. There's actually $14.5 million in cap savings and just $2 million if they do it next offseason. But I don't think they want to remove their starting right tackle for $3 million in cap savings. Sorry, dude. All right, we do have a bunch of Super Chats flying in, so it's a good time to remind you guys of our Super Chat menu today. $2 Super Chat, you get a shout-out, get on screen for everyone to see. $5 Super Chat, sponsor an episode of Falcons Today. So all the $5 Soupies, don't worry, I've been keeping track, and we'll give you guys some shout-outs and some love on future shows so everyone knows that Mr. Lopez, or whoever it may be, is a big-time baller at the channel. $10 Super Chat gets you entered into our Michael Vick autographed jersey giveaway. This will be done next Thursday. So tune in. It's a month-long deal we are running, so make sure you tune in next Thursday for that. And these are before today, or coming into today. So all the $10 Super Chats we've gotten today, don't worry, your name will be added to this list. Are we ready to start segment number 2? All right. Here we go. Name badge? There you go. Welcome on in to Falcons Today. Matthew Peterson here talking about 5 players I think Atlanta should avoid with their 8th overall pick. I know this is kind of a doom and gloom segment, but ultimately the draft is always filled with great picks and awful picks. I don't want to see the Falcons make a bad pick. And when you pick in the top 10 as a team, you don't hope to pick in the top 10 the next year. That's not an awesome achievement to have, the 8th overall pick, especially year after year. And I don't want to see them get stuck with the 8th overall pick next year, and picking a very good player this year might help them get them out of that rut. So I'm going to go in order of players from most to least most, if that's even proper English, I don't want to see Atlanta use the 8th overall pick on. Starting with the Penn State edge rusher, Chop Robinson. This name might sound a little familiar for those of you that have been subscribed to the channel for a few months, because we actually talked about Chop Robinson back in November. And I'll expand more on that in just a second. But let's look and see what he did last year for the Nittany Lions. 15 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Now, he did miss some time towards the end of the season, so take that into account. But for me, he's on this list because there is just not enough production for the 8th overall pick. Now, the first mock draft I saw back in November from Dane Brugler at The Athletic had Atlanta taking Chop Robinson. And if you guys remember, I actually did a deep dive on taking edge rushers that are in the first round because of their God-given, incredible physical traits and not because of their production. Because Chop Robinson is a physical beast when it comes to the size, the speed, and the bend that you hardly find all three of in an edge rusher. But at some point, you do have to sack the quarterback, right? You don't get sacks for being very fast and breathing on the quarterback. So what I did, if you guys remember back in November, was I looked at the NFL draft results from 2017 to 2020. Went back that far because that's a good enough date range to know whether or not those picks were good or bad picks. And in that span, 19 edge rushers were selected in the first round. Of those 19, 11 either had their fifth-year option picked up or made a Pro Bowl. And I would say that would count as a successful pick if the team opts to get the fifth-year option picked up or if they made a Pro Bowl. So 11 of the 19 were successful picks. Of those 11 that were successful, none of them had less than 5.5 sacks in a single season in college. None of them had less than 11.5 sacks in their collegiate career. Chop Robinson, unfortunately, falls into the bucket of less than 5.5 sacks in a single season and less than 11.5 sacks in his career in college. So that's why I've got Chop Robinson on here. I understand there are some guys who are physically gifted, and I think Chop Robinson's stock is going to rise after the combine, a little bit like Trayvon Walker from Georgia, because he was not someone that was uberly productive for the Bulldogs, but they saw the traits and they thought we can't pass on this. And Trayvon Walker's not really doing all that much great stuff in Jacksonville, at least not worthy of the first overall pick. And I would apply the same to Chop Robinson with pick number 8. Moving on to our second avoid at number 8, it is the Michigan man, J.J. McCarthy. Probably the most talked about draft prospect over the last month, I would say. And here's what I want to open up with. Are we just going to forget about the season? Are we just going to act like the games mattered for nothing? Because what I saw last year was J.J. McCarthy do a really, really good job of leading a run-first offense and didn't make a lot of downfield passes. And I don't think that means he can't be a good NFL quarterback. I don't think that means he can't be drafted in the second or third round. Maybe the late first round. But we're going to move him all the way up to the 8th overall pick now? Are we not going to just completely, we're just going to black out everything that happened in the fall? Did anyone in October think, like, this is the guy I want to see use a top 10 pick on? I didn't. But this is what we do as a country, as a NFL fan base nationwide. We have the draft in April, which means we get bored waiting for the draft. So we conjure up these stories and conjure up these ideas of this guy going super early or this guy falling. And then the draft rolls around and the GMs just laugh at all of us because we became victims to boredom and just created these wild ideas of this guy's going to go top 10. Who remembers last year when people said Will Levis is going to go first overall? Huh? I don't think J.J. McCarthy should go 8th overall to the Falcons. If you want to use a second rounder on him, fine. Right? I am all for throwing darts at the quarterback bullseye and hoping that you hit. And second rounder, if it doesn't work out, that'd be a bummer. Second rounders are valuable. I'm not going to act like they're useless. But ultimately, that should not make or break the franchise for the next 2 to 3 years. Missing on a top 10 pick, that could set you back a little bit. And missing on this one would set you back if it does happen. So pick a quarterback, though, from the second tier of QBs. Michael Penix, Bo Nix, and J.J. McCarthy. You would have been laughed at in October if you said, give me J.J. McCarthy over Michael Penix. What's changed? Come on. Don't become a victim of just being bored and think, well, let's just kind of create a new idea up. I'm sticking with Michael Penix Jr. Moving on to our third player to avoid the 8th overall pick, I'm going to go with Florida State edge rusher Jared Verse. Now, I like Jared Verse as a player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not coming for him as much as I was for Chop Robinson and J.J. McCarthy. He is 6'4", 260 pounds, started off at Albany, then he transferred down to Tallahassee, put together back-to-back 9-sack seasons, could have entered the draft last year, went back for another year. I think it helped his draft stock out. And the Falcons do have a need at edge rusher. There's no denying it, right? They have Bud Dupree set to hit free agency. Not so confident Lorenzo Carter will be returning in 2024. So there's a need here. But I don't think Jared Verse is an ideal fit in a 3-4 defense. I don't think he's going to make for a good down lineman for a 3-4 defense. And I don't think he's good enough in coverage as an outside linebacker to pick up and fulfill those responsibilities. So I just don't think it's a great fit for him in Atlanta. Now, before we get to the rest of my avoid at pick number 8 targets, I do want to tell you guys about our sponsor, which is Prize Picks. And I know a certain viewer of the channel is going to love this read. So get started with Prize Picks today because it is daily fantasy made easy. All you do is pick 2 to 6 players. Simple enough. Choose more or less on their projected stats. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about and you want it in layman's terms, I can help you out, Michael Scott. Here's what you do. All you're going to do is select 2 to 6 players, and I've got a whole bunch of selections here for the upcoming MLB season, and I just took the more on all of them. Why? Because this is the summer of dingers, baby. So if you want to watch Austin Riley or Ronald Acuna home runs and have a little extra sweet incentive to cheer them on, well, ride with me over at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. So turn what your entry is into 15x if you go a perfect 6 for 6 on Prize Picks. Once again, download the Prize Picks app by going to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. Our fourth avoid at pick number 8. And again, this is not all these guys I share the same amount of equal dislike for the 8th overall pick. We are slowly regressing here. But I'm going to go with Brian Thomas, the wide receiver out of LSU. Why would I have Brian Thomas here? The guy had 17 touchdowns last year for Jane Daniels in Baton Rouge. 1,100 yards, 68 grabs, and that's an average of 17.3 receptions. So, Petey, with all due respect, what the fuck is he doing on your list? Well, he's 6'4", he's 205 pounds. He's got really great top-end speed. But despite being 6'4", he doesn't actually play with a 6'4" frame. Like, he's not the best at physical contested catches, actually. And he lacks an extensive route tree. Like, Brian Thomas was, I think, he had like a doctorate in backyard football with Jaden Daniels of, I'm just going to go run a fade route, chuck it up to me. I'm 6'4", and I can take down this Mississippi State DB. That's not going to carry over to the NFL if you only have one route, and defensive coordinators have some tape and some film to prepare their defensive backs for every single week. So Brian Thomas, I think, can make a good NFL receiver, but I'm not super high on him. I've got my concerns about the size not really fitting what you think would be the best characteristics for a 6'4" receiver, and I haven't seen him run more than 1 or 2 routes during his time at LSU very well. So for that reason, I don't want him to be the 8th overall pick for Atlanta. I think a team picking 20 to 25, it's a pretty good gamble for a guy that had 17 touchdowns. But I liked Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze a lot more with the 8th overall pick. These are 2 wide receivers I would like to see Atlanta target if they still need to address wide receiver by the time the draft rolls around. Now, we have one more name to look at here, but really quickly, selfishly, I do ask to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We are closing in on 20,000 subscribers. It is crazy to see the kind of growth we have had over the last few months. So if you have not joined the channel yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Go ahead and do so today. 5th player to avoid at pick number 8. I'm going to go with the Mizzou cornerback, Ennis Rakestraw Jr. So there are some good corners in this class, and I think Rakestraw is one of those good corners. But I don't think he is worthy of being the 8th overall pick for Atlanta. 35 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, 3 pass breakups. The interceptions don't bother me too much. I wouldn't read into them too much when it comes to college to the pros. I mean, picks in general are just so fluky. Sometimes you're going to bounce your way, sometimes you don't. I don't think you should make a mountain out of a guy getting 0 or getting 4 interceptions in a season. Now, Rakestraw is 6 foot tall, 188 pounds, so pretty good size for a corner. He's got good length. He's able to kind of bear hug receivers, if you will. However, the reason why I've got him on this list, the primary reason at least, is he suffered a lot of injuries throughout his years and time at Mizzou. He ended this past season injured. I'm sure during the combine, teams will get a much better idea of just truly how healthy he is. But we're not talking about the 24th overall pick. Got to hit with top 10 picks. Just can't miss. And I feel like taking a guy that missed a good amount of time during his time in college with the 8th overall pick is just asking for trouble. Maybe the risk will pay off, but I don't want to risk it with the 8th overall pick. There are other corners I like a lot more that I think should go before Rakestraw pick number 8. Cooper DeJean from Iowa. Talk about a playmaker. There were 2 Hawkeyes that were first-round picks in last year's draft, and DeJean was better than both of those players. He had 3 pick sixes in 2022. Now, Nate Wiggins out of Clemson, he is fast. He is lengthy. He's not the best tackler necessarily, but it's hard to coach speed. And he has the ability to recover after getting beat off the snap. And then maybe the most pure shutdown corner, Terrion Arnold. Great ball skills, 6 interceptions during his 2 years as a starter for Nick Saban's Crimson Tide. Terrion Arnold, definitely my favorite of the bunch right there. Now, who do you want to avoid at pick number 8? Who is the guy that maybe other people are talking about drafting, and you're the one in the friend group, in the group chat, in the basement going, I don't want to pick him? Let me know down below in the comment section. This is a safe space, so let your hatred out for some of these players, and I'm sure all of this is going to become horrible rat poison. And Brian Thomas Jr. will be picked by the Carolina Panthers in the 33rd overall selection, and he'll have 3 touchdowns against Atlanta in week 1 next year. No doubt about it. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Always appreciate people who tune in and watch all the way to the end of the video. So if you're still watching, give me an ATL in the comment section. We got another super chat rolling in from our friend across the pond, Complete the States. All right, we do have a mailbag coming up, so hashtag Falcons, or you can super chat like all the previous super chatters have today. But what's going on, dude? 10 pounds is more than $10, so get me in the hat for that Vic jersey. Done. Field seems inevitable, and that twinkle in St. Brown's eye with the question was telling. I'm just worried about Zach Robinson's system. I think that people have made too big of a deal out of Zach Robinson's system. I don't think Zach Robinson has a system. Like, I think Zach Robinson was very fortunate to join a Rams coaching staff that had incredible stability at the quarterback position. They went from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford. A very seamless transition. No big quarterback search. No year of trying out a rookie. Zach Robinson just benefited from being in a spot where they didn't have to do a big extensive quarterback search. I don't think it's fair to say, well, that's not a Zach Robinson quarterback. He had Goff and Stafford. Zach Robinson, I'll tell you what, was not a part of the Matthew Stafford trade decision. They did not consult the low level at the time Rams QB coach on who do you think we should trade for quarterback. So I think Zach Robinson got this job because he's a really good offensive-minded person. And he, in Raheem Morris's eyes, is worthy of taking more responsibilities onto his plate. I don't think you should read too much into, look at the quarterbacks they had in LA. That's not what Robinson had. No, Robinson is not just like reserved or narrowed in on Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford caliber quarterbacks. And even those 2 quarterbacks aren't all that similar, believe it or not. All right, another super chat rolling in here before we get to our mailbag. Complete the States, though. I do appreciate your super chat. Thank you for tuning in for like 8 p.m. over there in the UK. We got Mr. Marlon Cosi. Okay, and Michael Rodriguez is in the chat. Ty Man the Buckeye is here. 121 people currently tuned in, just 49 likes. Can we get to 50 likes? One person watching that hasn't liked the video yet, please go ahead and do so. Okay, here's our next super chat from Marlon, and then we're going to jump into our mailbag. ATL will be on fire in a few weeks when Justin Fields comes to town. I almost want to get as specific as what day he'll get traded because I'm just that confident he will be traded to Atlanta. Free agency tampering opens up March 11th, maybe like March 12th. The first day kind of settles in, and then they decide, all right, let's stop messing around. March 12th. If I'm right, I'm going to come back. I'm going to bookmark this bad boy. All right, are we ready to jump into a mailbag? So hashtag Falcons for all the super chats we got. If there's a question, include them earlier in the show. If it's just kind of like Marlon here, include towards the end of the show. But we'll prioritize the question ones. That sound fair to everyone? All right, let's do it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome into a mailbag edition of Falcons Today. This was filmed during our live show, which aired this past Thursday afternoon. So tune in Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern to have your question answered. But our first one comes in from Jackson Cobb. Thoughts on trading for Khalil Mack? I think the Chargers are hitting a slight reset button with some of their older veteran players that have big cap hits, like Khalil Mack, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. And I could see the Chargers with a new GM and a new head coach that did not trade for Khalil Mack shopping the former NFL Defensive Player of the Year. His trade value could not be higher for the Chargers. He comes off a 17-sack season, very healthy the last 2 years. That's probably what's most important. Like, sure, the production's good, don't get me wrong. But remember, the last 2 years in Chicago, like last year in Chicago specifically, a foot injury caused him to miss most of the year. And then he puts together back-to-back perfect attendance seasons from 2022 to 2023. So I don't think teams will have too much concern about how much gas he has left in the tank. And I would definitely be interested in trading for Khalil Mack. Now, it cost the Chargers a second-rounder to get him. I don't think the Falcons would have to pay a second-rounder. I think it might be a third, could even be a pair of fourths or a pair of fives, like 2 day 3 picks. And if that's all it costs, sign me up. Like, get Khalil Mack to Atlanta if it's not going to cost you that much. So let me know, would you trade for Khalil Mack? I'm in. I'm not going to trade away a second-rounder for Khalil Mack, but I would trade away a third. Like, you're not going to find a third-round pick that's going to have that big of an impact. Look at Zach Harrison, third-round edge rusher last year. Showed some good flashes towards the end of the year. But if Atlanta's serious about maximizing their kind of, not win-now window, but getting back on a winning path, Khalil Mack's going to help a whole lot more in 2024 than any third-round pick would. Established TV, next one up. Fields or Daniels, Cousins should be nowhere near Atlanta. Atlanta was more exciting when it had a dual-threat quarterback. We have to bring it back. I'm going to push back on the dual-threat part because I never thought Matt Ryan was much of a dual-threat quarterback, and he was pretty darn good for the Falcons. But, yeah, Justin Fields or Jaden Daniels, those are my top 2 guys. If you can get Jaden Daniels at number 8, perfect. Unlikely in my eyes, but perfect. And it's a gamble waiting until the draft to see if he falls to you, which is why I believe the Falcons are going to trade for Justin Fields. Atlanta Dog, what do you think about taking a chance on Jordan Travis in a later round? Jordan Travis, Joe Milton, Michael Pratt, any of these quarterbacks, I'm all for using day 3 picks on a QB at some point. It is so hard to find a good quarterback in the NFL. Every single year, a third, if not half the teams, almost it feels like, are searching or beginning the process of searching for a new quarterback. So if you can find one of these golden tickets like a Brock Purdy, a Tom Brady, it's worth a day 3 pick every single year in the draft in my eyes. I'm in, dude. Reggie Lopez, in my opinion, the ideal scenario. Trade for Fields, draft an edge rusher, hopefully that guy Dallas Turner from Alabama, sign Calvin Ridley back to help with the receiver core, and boom, NFC South is ours for the taking. Let me break it down bit by bit here. Trade for Fields. I'm in. Draft an edge rusher, hopefully Dallas Turner. I'm not as high on Dallas Turner as other people are. The big reason being is he was opposite of Will Anderson for a good stretch there in Tuscaloosa. So up until this past season, we only got 1 year of Dallas Turner truly being the number 1 edge rusher on that team. And he was good, but he was so far away from what we saw to Will Anderson. I kind of wonder if he's just going where he is because he was the premier Alabama edge rusher. And so obviously there's going to be more eyeballs and attention on him. As for the Calvin Ridley part, I don't think the Falcons would have much interest in bringing him back. Now, if the Jaguars extend him before free agency starts, Atlanta gets a second-round pick out of that trade. If they sign him after free agency starts, it's a third. That's very important. That March 13th date is a huge difference maker. So I think Calvin Ridley will be somewhere but Atlanta. I don't think Arthur Blank is going to approve or sign off on a Calvin Ridley signing. All right, we have more questions to get to on today's video, but first I want to tell you guys about the awesome deal still going on at Fanatics, which is this Falcons t-shirt and hat combination. You're not getting just one. You're getting a twofer on sale. They're basically paying you I probably shouldn't legally say that, but you get the gist. Get the Falcons t-shirt hat combination when you go to chatsports.com/ATL combo. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. So if you want to replenish your Falcons wardrobe, don't just get one item, but get 2 items on sale when you use our link. Jeremy, if we trade for Justin Fields, who do you want us to take at number 8? Jeremy, that is an excellent question. If the Falcons trade for Justin Fields, Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, I think they are both incredibly talented and special wide receivers. And what I don't want to see happen is Justin Fields gets to Atlanta and he's got Drake London and then receivers in the same tier of the Matt Collins, the Van Joseph, and the Scotty Millers of the world. And we don't get a fair shake or get a great idea of what we really have in Justin Fields. Invest in him. And if it doesn't work out with Justin Fields, man, the next quarterback's going to have one hell of a receiver room waiting for him with Drake London and Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze. If both those receivers are gone, I really like Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. I know corner's not a huge need, but I like Terrion Arnold more than the other edge rushers in this draft class. Brody Brown, next one up. Should we sign Marquise Brown in free agency? I'm not the biggest Marquise Brown guy. I do think he made a big improvement in his career and his just overall repertoire, if you will, in Arizona compared to what we saw with him in Baltimore with Lamar. I bet the Cardinals are going to try really hard to bring him back. They could have traded him, but they didn't. I think they view him as a building block piece. So my guess is the Cardinals are going to give him a nice offer, and unless Atlanta really breaks the bank for him, he's probably going to go back to Arizona. And if he is with Atlanta, then that means they likely made him an offer he couldn't refuse, and I don't think he's that type of receiver. So I'm not putting Marquise Brown very high on my free agent targets list. Atlanta Dog 88. What do you think about taking a chance? Oh, we got this one already. That's right. We'll get the next question on screen in just a moment, but I do like taking a chance on a quarterback at any point. Life of a Ham, Justin Fields, Hollywood Brown, edge rusher, veteran corner in free agency, and Terrion Arnold at number 8. Fill out wide receiver and defense with the rest of the draft. Best way to go about it. I like a lot of this, not so much the Hollywood Brown part. I would probably go a different direction at wide receiver, but there is a possibility that T. Higgins is franchise tagged and he's just not on the market. Michael Pittman re-signs with Indianapolis. Mike Evans, Mike Evans is really good. Really good. Mike Evans is awesome. He's a future Hall of Famer. So every team should have some level of interest in Mike Evans, but yeah, I guess I've actually talked myself into it more and more. Why not pursue Mike Evans? Everyone should pursue Mike Evans. He's a freaking baller. Go veteran edge rusher and corner. I think they're going to make veteran additions at both those spots. So all in all, Life of a Ham, I think this is a pretty accurate prediction for what might be unfolding the next 2 months. Before we get to the rest of the questions on today's show, shout out your college for me in the chat. We're always asking questions about the Falcons, right? I figured it'd be nice to kind of throw a curveball your way. And let me know where you went to school, what your favorite school is, whatever it is. Get in the comment section right now and shout out your college. Robert, what do you think? Who do you think the Falcons will choose in the first round? Who do I think the Falcons will choose in the first round? Last year, I feel like the Bijan Robinson hype and smoke didn't come until the last 3 weeks before the draft. Now, it's tough to say before free agency because that's going to dramatically impact their needs. But I could see Atlanta going Malik Neighbors. He's there at 8. That's going to be really tough to pass on in my eyes. So I'm going to go with Malik Neighbors for now. Let's see how good or bad this ages in the next 2 months or so. Marlon, ATL will be on fire in a few weeks when Justin Fields comes to town. Justin Fields will be traded to the Atlanta Falcons on March 12th. Book it. Dadon, what if we traded Kyle Pitts for a high mid to second rounder and a third rounder and are able to get Fields, Turner, Brock Bowers, and a good corner and receiver in those rounds received? I think it's a good or decent idea. I don't know if you're going to get that great of a haul for Kyle Pitts, right? 3 years in, he's got 1 season above 1,000 yards. I know he was a 4th overall pick, but if you look at what his production has been, and exclude the part that he was the 4th overall pick in the draft, I don't think any team was rushing to the table to give you a mid to second rounder and a 3rd rounder. I think you might be able to trade Kyle Pitts for like a 3rd round pick, and that might be it. So I could be way off base, but I don't think you're getting as much as you think you are for Kyle Pitts. Now, if you are able to trade him for a 3rd round pick, like I love Brock Bowers, and I wish I could talk about Brock Bowers more on this channel, but I just don't think it's very likely because Kyle Pitts is there. But if they were to trade Kyle Pitts, that would definitely open up Bowers at number 8, and you could satisfy other needs in day 2 of the draft. So I'm not opposed to this idea. I just wouldn't have your sights so high on getting a 2nd and a 3rd for Kyle Pitts. Procter Gamble, yes to Fields, to Daniels, and maybe. But if they are gone, J.J. McCarthy's a QB sleeper, and I'm a Dogs fan. Justin Fields, number 1. Jaden Daniels at 8 is number 1, but I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to be there. So then you have Justin Fields, and I'm okay with using a 2nd or a 3rd rounder on J.J. McCarthy. Very curious to see where he ultimately ends up going. I have this gut feeling he's not going to go round 1 like everyone's saying he will. That will do it for us on our mailbag today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's always a blast taking questions from you guys during our live show. So remember, if you have a question at all, tune in next Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, to be a part of this live mailbag. All right. Why would I trade Pitts? Trade Kyle Pitts, you don't have to pick up his 5th-year option, meaning you're not tied to that guaranteed money next year. So you can kind of use that to your advantage if you're not a big Kyle Pitts guy. Man, at some point, though, you got to stop making excuses for Kyle Pitts. When you picked 4th overall, it's because you are so talented, you are able to help maybe a less than superstar average quarterback out. Like, that's the whole point of being the 4th overall pick tight end is, like, put him with any quarterback and he should produce. It hasn't worked in Atlanta, really. After his rookie year, I know the knee injury in 2022, but put some blame on Desmond Ridder, I guess. But at some point, when's that guy from Florida going to come out? Marlon with a $5 super chat yet again. Salute to you. What's up, Petey? And my Falcon family? The city of Atlanta will be on fire when Justin Fields comes to town in a couple of weeks. Hopefully it's not as bad as the fire on, was it 85? It feels like that was so long ago. When there was the chemical fire underneath the interstate. I think it was 85. But my memory is now fogging me. Someone in the comment section, please tell me. So hopefully it's not as bad as that joke I just tried to make about the fire at the highway in 2019, 2018, whatever it might be. But Marlon, March 12th, dude. March 12th. All right. That's going to do it for us on our live show today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's always a blast getting an opportunity to be live with you all so you can kind of see how the sausage is made a little bit. And you get to get your questions and your comments on screen. So to everyone that's super chatted, thank you so much. Don't worry. I will keep track of everyone that sent in a $10 super chat. And for the $5 super chat club, stay tuned for some shout-outs on a future episode of Falcons Today. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. We will sign off and catch up later.